Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Huge Pop from the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. Tonight, we have a special guest. He's been with the CWF Christian Wrestling Federation since their first show in 2000. He's probably the most genuine guy in all of pro wrestling. He's a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He is the perfect Storm. Tim Storm, welcome to the show. How you doing, my friend?
Thank you, my brother. I'm doing well. I still laugh because I'm about the most imperfect person there. And I'll have somebody, I'll be going to the ring. They're like, "You're not perfect," and you're telling me. But the whole point of that at the time was that there was a movie that came out, Perfect Storm, and I've been Tim Storm for 30 years, so I thought, okay, that makes sense. And was a big Mr. Perfect fan anyway, so Absolutely. It worked out.
Mr. Perfect, that's old school. And
I'm old school.
Not to mention he's a former CWF heavyweight champion as well. So
yeah, it's and current tag champs with my partner Aikbach. So it's it goes back to not quite the beginning of me wrestling, but 3 or 4 years into the business, I moved to Dallas and got involved with those guys, and they're my brothers. And I tell Rob every time, it's just a blessing to get to go out and spend some time with them.
So you mentioned brothers, and I'm going to start with the question I usually ask in the middle of the conversation. So with that group of guys, and even the guys in the NWA and all around the world where you've been, brotherhood must be important to you as a wrestler. So can you talk about a little bit about the importance of brotherhood?
Well, I think there's when you say it that way, I hear two different things. Okay. Wrestling in general, there is a tight locker room brotherhood. It's you can't do the damage that we do to each other. You sweat and you work hard, and at times bleed with those guys. And we've joked for a long time, APOC and I do, that really when this sounds terrible, but you can hurt the ones you love and know they're not going to get mad at you. You can punch somebody and apologize later, and that you're brothers. The wrestling locker room is just a tight brotherhood anywhere. The CWF is a different kind of brotherhood. You've got that aspect to it, but you've also got the fact that we're the show's there for a very specific reason, and wrestling is not number one. It's not the top priority. It's a very, very important aspect, because that's what it's called. It's called, Christian wrestling. But, you get both of those brotherhoods. And before we came on, I was telling you, I wrestle in a lot of places. I'm slowly paring that down now as my body breaks down and all those fun things. But I told Rob the other day, I said, it's always fun. It's always a pleasure to get to come out. And it's almost like you take a deep breath and go, okay, this is very relaxed. And I think as wrestlers, and I'll just speak for myself, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and when I'm anywhere, and I put pressure on myself at CWF when I get in the ring, but up to that point, it's just fun and relaxed, and it's a whole different world.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for that. So can you walk us through your childhood memories as a fan, and even as a fan today? Can you just walk us through a little bit of that history and what you used to watch and what you loved?
I'm old. Let me warn you before I start. I will, but I'm going to probably go back so far that most people aren't going to know what I'm talking about. You do, man. I try not to. I will be 60 this week, so I am very old. But my first wrestling memory was Danny Hodge, who was, later in life was the Oklahoma Athletic Commission. But, he was tag team partners with Skandar Akbar. They were both baby faces. There was a huge turn. It was a huge angle. But my first memory was this guy came out and had been a loser leaves town match. And someone came out wearing a mask, and everybody said it was Danny Hodge. Everybody knew it was Danny Hodge, but you couldn't get the mask off of him. Had the pleasure at one point of being managed for a while by Skandar Akbar, and we worked a program of a match. I shouldn't say a program. We worked a match with a couple of guys in TCW. And they had Danny Hodge in their corner. And you talk about a brotherhood. to see those two guys in their late 70s. Hack wasn't doing very well physically, but you watch the brotherhood. Thank you. But those guys to that day still love and respect each other. Respected the business. I don't want to get into the whole kayfabe thing, but like he literally respected the whole. But Danny Hodge was a Golden Glove boxer. He was a legit shooter. He was known for the strength of his hands, crushing apples. And I had one goal in that match. He was famous for the big right hand, and we were working heel at the time, and I wanted to take a Danny Hodge punch to the head, and I did. And then at that time in my life, I was like, best thing that's ever happened to me, So I'm old school where those are the guys that influence me. I was a big Harley race mark growing up. Dusty Rhodes influenced me a lot. I don't know if you've seen anything that my boots are very much a throwback, and it's kind of my dedication to guys like Dusty and Barry Windham and those guys, because that's the ones that influence me. Wrestling wise, that's my style. I am not and I tell anybody that I'm wrestling, I'm not a great wrestler, but I can fight and I can brawl, and I have enough basic technique that, the way I train, because I trained as old school as you get, to I can get in there and wrestle some, but it's going to break down into me punching you in the head at some point. It's my style. So today, a lot of people will be disappointed in this, but I think I don't watch a lot of current wrestling. I have been drawn into almost said New York. Nobody does that anymore. WWE, obviously, the angle with Roman Reigns, and they've been working this for a year and a half, 2 years, as far as this particular angle. Yeah. Very well done. So I will watch that. I've got some friends there that I support a lot. But honestly, when I'm watching wrestling, I'm watching Mid-South, old school Memphis wrestling. That's the stuff that I grew up loving, and that's the stuff that I still love.
Awesome. You talk about friends that you are having right now. I know of two of them that are pretty dear to your heart. Probably would be Nick Aldis and would be LA Knight.
Yeah,
did some stuff with them back in NWA and stuff like that. So we'll get to those guys later on. But
okay.
Well,
and I'm that guy, and I'm not alone in the world, but there's a lot of people in wrestling that can't hardly stand the success of someone else, regardless. And they see that someone having success, and whether it's the jealousy or whatever, that's just not me. Man, I want everybody in the business to be successful. And if you've worked hard and you deserve it, please go out there and I hope you kill it. And you just named two that are absolutely killing it right now. So, kudos to them. They deserve it.
Absolutely. So your early career, can you tell us about some early highlights of your career? Getting started, your first matches and.
I trained in Paris, Arkansas. And again, this is one of those things that most people won't remember at all, but everybody in the country, for the most part, you either got your boots from Mexico or you got them from Paris, Arkansas. Bill Ash was my trainer. His dad owned a boot place, and he literally made boots for everybody from Andre all the way down. He was a wrestler, and he was a very good wrestler, undersized, not a great body, great mind. But he would, when he would go to a show, he would carry, 20 pair of boots with him that his dad had made of different sizes, and those would sell at the show. The other wrestlers were buying boots, and they would order. I got a really, really good, solid foundation in I just call it shoot wrestling, because that was Bill. Bill would say, "Here's how you break somebody's arm. Here's how you don't break their arm." But everything was both sides. My first match was, again, a tag match against Bill, because that's pretty normal. Your trainer is the guy that's going to kind of break you in. And like I said, it was as old school as you could get. It was a storefront that you couldn't, the ceiling was so low that when you set the ring up, that was set up all the time, you could stand on the second rope and you'd hit your head just standing there. So there was no high spots. I didn't know what that was. the mat was a canvas, like you'd throw over the roof of your house if you had a leak. So if you got sweaty or if it was raining, it would leak through the ceiling onto the mat, and you would just slide out of the ring.
Oh, wow.
And to Bill's credit, it was this is what wrestling's about, and he really didn't. I think I asked him after the first match because he got in the corner. He said, "Hit me," and I hit him, and he gritted his teeth and he goes, "Hit me." And all I heard in my head was, "Oh gosh, I'm in trouble. I didn't hit him hard enough." So I hit him harder. And did it again, and we got to the back, and I said, "Well, what do you you go to get input after every match if you can." And I said, "Bill, you acted mad? Was I not hitting those hard enough?" And he goes, "No, you were hitting me so hard I almost couldn't sell them." But we had never worked on a punch a day in my life. You say hit me, we hit each other. It's just the way it was. So early opportunities, I had some good opportunities with the guys that were part of Bill's organization, and he brought in some really good guys, but way too early for my experience. But I got my first NWA world title shot 6 months into wrestling against Dan Severn. It was terrible. I mean, it was just not a good match. And that's on me. I look back and it's embarrassing to watch that. Bill, also a guy named Jeff Jett, was doing the training, and he worked with me and was very patient and kind of built the foundation of I got impatient and I said, "Hey, I need to know some of this other stuff." So we would stand outside, and Bill would stand outside after training, and we'd all have a good good conversation. Bill would get in his car to go home, and Jeff would reach over and grab his screwdriver and he'd pop the lock on the door. And then I learned what a spot was. Then I learned how to put things together because of him. Bill started helping book with World League Wrestling, which was Harley's promotion, and then I think it became World Legion Wrestling. I think after that,
you got a message, homie.
But it was very much like I got just destroyed by King Mabel, who then I got 8, 9, 10 years later got destroyed even worse on national TV. I got beat up by Butch Reed, and all those were highlights for me. Those are especially Butch Reed. I grew up watching, and so that was my early on. And then I moved to Dallas, and that's kind of where I was getting out of wrestling. Like 5 years in, I was done. I had a job as a vice president at a company, and thought, okay, it's time to grow up and start wrestling. Stop wrestling. Make sure I make the money I need to for my family, and that lasted about 9 months. And I called Rob and introduced myself, and the CWF opened their arms, and I basically retrained with somebody else and learned more. So anyway, that's my early influences. I would go to the Pine Bluff Convention Center and watch wrestling about once or twice a year, and that was Mid-South. And I've told this story before, but it still gives me chill bumps. I went to a show, and it was a really, really good show. I mean, it was Hacksaw Butch Reed against Hacksaw Jim Duggan in a coal miner's glove on a pole match.
Oh, wow.
Had some great Iron Mike Sharp, who Skandar Akbar on TV cut a promo, and I mean, at that time, I never dreamed I would become friends with him. But he said, "Pine Bluff, Arkansas, sounds like an air freshener," and it was. But the main event was Andre against Ken Patera. And strangely for us, the finish was a body slam. But this was back in the old days when you had the one kettlebell light hanging over the ring, and when he picked Ken Patera up, his legs hit the light, and it just started swinging. And I literally was like, I hear angels singing, and I'm like, I have to do this, So, and it took me 25 years or 30 to get there, but I eventually got there. So
nice, that's awesome. So there was a situation where you had maybe an opportunity with WCW, but they said you were too old.
It was. I called them before I started training, and actually they didn't say you're too old. What they said was, because I was 31 when I started training, I think, and I called and said, "Hey, I'm interested in pursuing this. I'm a pretty big guy. You know, I played football in college, and couldn't tell you who it was. He goes, well, the cutoff is 30. But he said, but if you'll get in the best shape of your life, we'll give you a shot. And what that really meant was bring your money and we'll take it before we send you home. You know, 'cause that was back in the days when they were running people off as fast as they can through the power plant, you know. So, you know, I don't have a clue. I think it was more I wasn't ready. I wasn't willing to walk away from my job supporting my family. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would call that an opportunity as much as I was looking, you know, I was looking at possibilities.
All right.
And
Okay.
a friend of mine from church said, hey, you might want to check this out. He said, I'm gonna be real honest with you. He said the production values are terrible, you know, but it was on TV. And he said, and they're advertising for a wrestling school. And that was Bill's. And I called them, and, you know, that's where we started.
Okay. Gotcha. What drew you to NWA as a fan, and you wanting to pursue the NWA? Where was that?
I was fortunate. I got wrestling. I got Memphis wrestling in the morning. Okay, so if you go through whatever your I'm old. My Rolodex. It's Lawler, and you know it's Boogie Woogie Man. It's, you know, it's all those guys which there's a Memphis style of wrestling, you know, that you learn and you watch, and then I got Mid-South Georgia Championship Wrestling in the afternoon, which was the NWA. So I got Flair and the Four Horsemen. I got, you know, Animal and Hawk. I got, you know, go through that list. And then every Saturday night I got Sportatorium. So I got, you know, I hit it where, you know, earlier than this, but I got the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. And, you know, so I got wrestling on Saturdays 3 times a day. So, you know, that was what NWA to me, that was wrestling. I mean, I loved all the others, but like, you know, I was a huge Dusty guy, and you put Dusty out there with, you know, against Ric Flair, or I was a big Mr. Wrestling #2 fan. I loved masked wrestlers, you know, the Assassin, Superstar. You know, that was the best to me. And to be I wanted to wrestle for the NWA. And I hit it at a time when it was in very much a downturn. Shane has, I won't say so, but we've talked several times, and right before, you know, Shane dumped it in the trash can, and not his fault, because, you know, we rode that train into you know, the lack of success. But I hit it on the decline and was hoping to help build it back up. And I think I did my part. You know, I did the best with whatever I was given, and that's still kind of what I do. So,
Yeah, I mean, I follow NWA now more than I never did because of just interviewing people off the indies, and they'd always talk about NWA. You know, I got friends all over the place, and I just think it's cool how Mr. Corgan's taken NWA. Now he's expanding to, like, there's something, they're working on something down in Florida, up in Cleveland, all over. So it's pretty cool how they're expanding, and it's just giving talent an opportunity that they might not have. And so I think that's cool. And I think, to be honest with you, the wrestling that you guys are doing in NWA now is as good as WWE, AEW. I love the feel of how they're doing things.
Yeah, it's very much, we're designed to be old school studio wrestling. I don't even know how long it's been now, 5 or 6 years ago when Billy bought it. Man, our locker room, you walked in there and it looked like, you know, you want to make a list of guys you don't want to fight. It was a locker room, you know, and full of big, strong, hard men that were willing to fight. Now we have a more diverse locker room. We can bring different styles of wrestling, but we're still designed as a studio show. You know, I don't think our long-term plan is to try to do what anybody else is doing. You know, we're going to do what we do, and there are people out there that love old school wrestling, and they're gonna see it. And you know, what up, Damien? Good to see you, man.
He's one of my longtime friends. I met Damian Wayne over in Panama City wrestling with XIW, Extreme Impact Wrestling. guys, Jackson Slade, Damian Wayne, Vordell Walker, Adrian Whisper, all those guys, man. And man,
I went down and wrestled Damian. The real deal. Old school guy that knows what he's doing and will bring it every time. Absolutely. You said Vordell. My biggest, I love Vordell, love Damian. My memory for Vordell is 3 days before I left for Japan to defend the world title, he knocked out my front tooth. So I got to go to Japan with a big jagged spot in the front of my mouth. We've had some battles, man. But both those guys, full respect.
I had an opportunity to see Vordell Walker and Damian Wayne. I think that's what about 3 or 4 months ago, 3 months ago, in Panama City. And man, you talk about making you make you feel how real it is.
Yeah.
Damian went flying across the table, and I think it was supposed to break, and then he caught the table right here. And I'm like, dang, and he got up like a champ and started beating
both those guys are. Man. And I'm sorry to sidetrack us, but I see somebody else. Right. But both those guys, true professionals that respect for the business and know what they're doing, and I respect those guys so much.
Oh, I mad respect for those guys too. Damian, thank you, Damian, for coming on the show, man. Appreciate that. So championship success. So winning the NWA World Heavyweight Championship must have been so significant moment in your life. Can you talk about that?
Honestly, because I loved the NWA, and I'd never, people said, so you reached your dream when you won that. I never dreamed that was a possibility. My goal when I got into wrestling was to have a match. My next goal was to have a second match and try to get better. And really that's been the goal the whole time. When I won the world title, because the NWA meant and means so much to me, I said it when Billy brought it back and we did championship wrestling from Hollywood, my first title defense. And I said, this is my mountaintop. And a lot of people were on social media were like, oh, stop it. If you got this opportunity, honestly, to me, there is nothing greater than winning the NWA world title. And, Jax Dane gave me multiple title shots when he didn't have to, because he kept beating me. We kept, and that night it was so emotional for me. I get emotional thinking about it now, but this is my truth. I knew that night that I didn't know how long I would hang on to it, but I knew my name had just gone on the list with some of the greatest wrestlers in the world. The guys that I grew up watching and wanting to be and modeling myself after, and I knew they couldn't take my name off the list. Right. I mean, and that, to me, that was it. It's like, okay, it doesn't get any higher than this. And I've said before, lately, the only thing that might top that is winning it again. And that's highly unlikely. And so, but that's the only thing I could think of that would even come close to topping it.
Yeah, man. So during your run at NWA Heavyweight Champion, you worked with a lot of big names like from the CCW, I think it is, like Ethan Page, MJF. Now these guys are big names in the business today. What is it like working with those guys? Especially, what is it like working with MJF?
Well, I want to make sure we did do something together, but it was not necessarily a match. But I kind of got to know him more on the Texas independent scene, and got to do some things there. I mean, obviously he's a talented guy. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to push buttons. And I think one of the things in our business that means more to me than anything else is storytelling. And, that guy understands how to push buttons and to tell a great story. And, again, you're probably not going to, you won't hear me say a bad thing about anybody, but you're bringing up guys that are, that I respect a lot. I've become friends with EC3 now. Our current NWA world champion, and every time I'm around him, he's working so hard. He's his goal when he goes out there is not how can I get myself over, because he didn't have to. His goal is, what do you do? How can I get you over? And let's have a match that means something, you know? So, yeah, I joke with him all the time. It's like, you know, could you eat a carb? You know, do you have a 0.1% of body fat left to lose? The guy's in incredible shape.
Right. That's awesome. And Nick Aldis, love what he's doing. I love how SmackDown brought him to SmackDown. That's awesome. That guy's phenomenal. What was your experiences with Nick? I know that other than that, what kind of guy is he? I mean, sure, he seems like a crazy, wonderful guy.
He is exactly what you see, which is why he's good at what he does. I think most of us, if you know, I'm a big fan of Mick Foley's first book, and one of the things he says is that you throw as many things at the wall as you can and see what sticks. But my thought is now, it's like what usually sticks is usually what's closest to who you really are. Nick is still to this day, if I see Nick, I'm like, he's bigger than I thought. I mean, every time he's probably 6'4", 250, you know, ripped, can do anything, can work any style. And the reason he and I's chemistry hit off so well is because we were exact opposites in personalities. He comes across as an arrogant jerk, because catch him on, you know, he can be that person, you know, and then you see him up there in those, when he's hitting those one-liners, it's because that's who he really is. You know, that's his personality. And we would try to top each other on live, or, you know, on NWA, and the other guy didn't know what was coming, and we would wait and try to top the other guy. But it's just again, if you haven't watched it, I'm not saying go back and watch it, but we were able to do something with a crew of, when we started with an NWA crew of 2 people. And then Josephus came in, you know, God bless him. I mean, rest in peace. But we then had a crew of 3. And I mean, it was Nick and I, and Nick had a lot to do with putting together the thought process of the 10 pounds of gold. He wanted it to be more of an MMA, you know, let's tell the story kind of thing. And I even learned, okay, I got to be careful what I tell Nick as a joke, because it will show up on NWA TV when I least expect it, and he'll try. And the whole game is, could he make me laugh and can I make him laugh? Right? I mean, and so I mean, we found a chemistry that really, really worked. And you know, I remember after our first match, I went to Nick and said, you know, and again, I'm 54 at that time. You know, I said, what did you see? What can I do better? And somebody asked me, well, did Nick come to you and to get advice on, you know, because you've been in the business so long? And I said, absolutely not. I went to him for advice. You know, a lot of people, I love Nick, and a lot of people don't. But to me, he was always, he would do anything in the world to help me, you know, in those situations. And he told, like, this is how he said it. He goes, I know you've been wrestling a really long time. He said, but when I came to the United States at 20 years old, he said, it's like I went straight from high school, which would have been like the brand of wrestling, to TNA at the time. And he said it was like walking into a master's or to a doctorate, because, you know, he said on a nightly basis, I wrestled, you know, Sting, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, you know, you go through the list, and he said, and every one of those guys tried to help me. So he said, I would be happy to share with you. And it was things like I still struggle with it. I don't have a very good change of pace. I have 1 speed. If I'm trying to move, I'm moving, but I don't. Or if I'm trying to go slow, but there's no change of pace. I mean, it's just little things like that make great wrestlers. And I'm still working on them.
Gotcha. Before we go any further, I got to say thank you, Dad. My dad's on here. My Damien, you're on here. My wife is on here. My sister's on here.
Nice.
Thank you guys for all your support. My family is my huge support to Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. My mom passed away in October. the last thing she said to me was, "Don't quit," and so I'm not quitting. So
And
I appreciate the support. So
well, and I don't, I don't want to turn this, but appreciate your family, not just you. Anybody out there, tell the people you love that you love them.
absolutely,
Just like you, I lost my mom last year. I lost my sister. I'm just saying, nothing's guaranteed in life.
that's right.
So,
I appreciate that, and you're absolutely correct. You know,
yeah.
yeah. So, as someone who has been part of NWA, what do you think sets NWA apart from the other promotions?
I think it's knowing who we are to a large degree. Um, Billy would tell you. I mean, we sat down, several of us, just kind of just talking, and he would very much say, we're not trying to compete with anybody. We are creating our brand of wrestling. It's not necessarily going to be for everybody. It's not going to reach everybody. If you like brand A, you may not like what we do, and that's okay. But we're going to try to do what we do. We are we're very much designed to be a studio show. When we go out and do some of the other ones, we have larger venues, but it's still, when we do TV tapings, when we do those kind of things, it is set up. If you're a fan of Memphis wrestling, old school, if you're a fan of Georgia Championship Wrestling, it was a studio show. And I know Georgia Championship Wrestling at one point had silhouettes painted on the wall to try to make it look like there were more people. There'd be like 3 rows of seats, and ours has more than that, but it's designed to be a studio show. Just weird. Like every time I go in the locker room, it's an ever changing, growing thing, and every time I'm there, I look around and go, whether I'm doing commentary or I'm in the ring, it's like, man, there's a ton of talent here.
Yeah.
So it's all about how it's being used now.
Yeah. No, you talk about studio show. I love NWA because of that, and I follow promotion. Herb Simmons promotion, SICW out of St. Louis, and we do a Thursday show every week. We do a Thursday show of SICW. I love them so much, and it's because of the old school studio. And that's just
and Herb's a great guy too. I'm gonna get the month wrong, but as long as NWA doesn't schedule something, I'll be there for their big,
FanFest.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah,
in May. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't have told you what month.
I was supposed to go to it, but I can't because my wife and I do work foster care. We take care of 8 foster children in an emergency shelter, and we only get 28 days off a year, so we got it already planned. My plan is to try to get to Vegas to the CAC.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, I think everybody ought to go. Yes, it is not expensive to join. Lifetime membership gets you in there, and Herb's great. If everything goes well, and somehow I always manage to mention this friend in every podcast I do, but if all works well, then James Beard and I will be out there together, and he's been my travel buddy for 15 or 20 years, and I always enjoy getting to spend time with him. So, Lori McGee has been like a behind the scenes person since the Sportatorium, and the 3 of us will probably go out. Hopefully, I'll still be teaching at that point, so I got to figure out scheduling, but that's my goal.
So do you have you mentioned road buddy. Do you have any one road story that was kind of, oh my gosh?
I've been so blessed with guys that I've gotten to ride with. I think one of the things one of the unfortunate things, and boy, I'm about to sound like the old head here, but I think one of the things that's missing from the young guys today is the opportunity to travel and listen and talk to experienced guys who have done everything in the ring. And I've been so fortunate to get to do that with a lot of guys. I told you I traveled with Skandar Akbar he managed us for a while, and his road stories. Killer Tim Brooks I worked for and worked with. I was always looking for somebody that could help, tell me what I did wrong. Lance Hoyt Archer and I traveled together a lot, and he was able to give me instant feedback on, like, we do 2 shows in a row for TCW and drive home, and then he would go, what were you thinking here? And I'd say, well, I'm trying to make the guy look, and he would go, okay, and again, but he would go, but you're the champion. So why would you? And I said, because it's Tommy Dreamer. And he goes, Tommy's going to make Tommy look good. Don't worry. So instant feedback. I had the pleasure. And again, another guy that has been somewhat controversial, but I love to death. Matt Bourne and I traveled together quite a bit. And again, how many times do you get to ride with somebody that was on first, second, third WrestleMania was at one point supposed to be the main event. But to get that kind of feedback, to work a program with that guy, I've just been, Jake Roberts. I got to sit down with Buck Robley and make him do some rides. Those kind of guys, you can't recreate, that knowledge. And then James has been my road partner for so long, and we joke because as we get older, and James is a little older than I am. You're welcome for me saying a little older, James. But it's like he would tell stories, or we would tell stories, and one of us start laughing, and we go, we probably told that story 10 times and just forgot it, because but he's, again, those guys, invaluable information. So just, I don't want to, there's a huge list, and I'm going to leave people out, and then it's going to look like I'm name dropping, and I don't want to do that. So it's just great guys that if you listen, for anybody young out there that's trying, that's in the business, that's learning, go and ask. You should never leave. When you walk through the curtains, you ought to find the veteran, somebody like Damien and Vordell and those guys, and you say, John Saxon was a huge benefit. It's go find those guys and say, what did you see? What did I do wrong? Where can I improve? Because that's how you get better. Guy was telling me a story last weekend. He said that he was sitting there and he got to sit. It was J.R. Kratos, and he was saying that he got to sit and watch a match with Terry Funk, and he said the match was awful. And they watched it on the monitor, and the guy walked in. He said, "Mr. Funk, what did can I get input on your match?" He goes, "Yeah, that was, kid, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable." And he walked away, and Terry looked at him, looked at JR, and goes, "Because I didn't believe any of it." So it's, but to get the opportunity to ask guys, do it every time, man.
I think you think that's missing in today's indie scene?
It depends on the guy. The easy answer is yes. But then again, I'm not a fan of again, I guess I am old, but I'm not a fan. There's a time and a place for high spots, and it adds to a show. But one of the biggest things I see is guys want to get those spots in, and they're not telling a story. There's a reason why old school works. Some of those guys are fantastic, and they'll come. I've had to make myself, because my thought has always been, why would anybody care what I thought about their match? If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, would you watch my match, please?" I absolutely will watch, and I'll tell them anything I see, good or bad. But a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys don't ask.
Gotcha. So can you talk a little bit about your commentary? What led into you becoming a commentary, and do you like doing that?
Good question. I'm processing, because I said on multiple podcasts that you can't win with me, right? What I mean is, like, when I showed up at a pay-per-view and was told, "Bring a suit, we may have you do some commentary," in Atlanta, and Joe Galley is kind of the captain of the NWA commentary. He's the leader, and he walked up to me before the show and he said, "Well, I heard you're going to do commentary tonight on the pay-per-view." And I said, "Yeah, I haven't been told which match." And he goes, "No, you're doing the commentary." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but I don't know which match." And he goes, "No, you and I are doing commentary on the pay-per-view." And I said, "Okay." So we did the first. I didn't prepare. I didn't know anything. I just went out there, and Joe led me in directions, and afterwards, Nick came up to me and he goes, "Congratulations. You just commentated yourself out of another title run." So I didn't know behind the scenes there was a lot of talk about maybe Nick and I doing something again, and another old anxiety, one more run for the title, and So when they put me on commentary, my thought was always, "What? I'm not good enough to wrestle for you now?" Put me in the ring, which I'm back in the ring now doing commentary. And when he asked me, I went, "Are you not happy with my commentary? You want me to wrestle?" So I wanted to do both. I like doing both. Commentary is not near as painful, but to be truthful, if you go out there and do a 15-minute match, you might be sore and the next day, but in 15 minutes you're done. If you go out there and do commentary, you're out there for 3.5 hours, and no bathroom breaks, and you're lucky to get something to get a drink, get a water while you're out there. So I like doing both. And when Billy came to me on this one, and I don't think this is privileged information, he said, he said, "If you're okay with it, I'd like to move you back to the wrestling side for a while." And I said, "Is there something you weren't happy with?" And he goes, "No." He said, "But commentary will always be there for you."
Yeah.
He said, "Wrestling won't." And there's a whole generation of people that now are watching our show that don't remember you in the ring, that don't really, other than us saying it, don't remember you as a world champion. And I get that's easy. I get that. And that's my happy place. Being in the ring is where I'm happy. I'm not near as my body doesn't do what it used to do. My brain doesn't do what it used to do. And as long as I am having fun and not embarrassing myself, I'll get out there and work as hard as I can. So,
an old friend of the show, Kendall say old friend. He's kind of a young guy, but friend of our show is Koa. I think
yeah.
Great guy.
Chicago, we're Chicago, right?
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's talk about fans. Wrestling has a passionate fan base, of course. I mean, there are all kinds of fans in wrestling, and trust me, all kinds of opinions of these fans in wrestling. But can you share some memorable interactions that you've had with fans, whether positive or challenging, whether as a commentary or in the ring?
As a commentary wise, there's not a ton of fan interaction. It's you got headsets on. The challenges are I had to learn to watch the monitor because that's what the fans on TV are seeing. While I really want to watch the match, and I'm seeing things they aren't. So that was one. Two, Joe is leading the charge all the way through, kind of directing traffic, but you've also got 2 or 3 other voices in your ear giving you direction at the same time. Bring this up, or talk. Don't forget about this, or whatever. But for me, fan interaction, and again, it's one of those things that a lot of people don't realize when you're breaking in and you're trying to get experience, go wrestle everywhere. Because I think that the generalization is fans everywhere are the same. They look like this, they do like this, they everywhere you go, the fans react differently. You've got to go out there and feel the crowd and see what they like and what they don't like. And I like fan interaction. It's just my personality, and I think sometimes I do it at inappropriate. It's not the right word, but my favorite. I personally enjoyed working heel more than I've worked face. Although I've worked face now for 20 years, right? But I love telling somebody I don't come to Taco Bell and tell you how to clean bathrooms. Don't tell me what to do in the ring. On the other hand, as a face, people can be just as brutal at times, but my whole thing is, my partner, right now I'm tagging with Jack Stain. And that's 2 veteran, big, powerful guys. But I recently, the night that he wrestled EC3, I wrestled, we had 3 former world champions and, a new face that had a run with WWE. I guess they were WWE at the time. And I found myself in a conversation during the match while I was supposed to be wrestling, asking me history questions. And I took it as a challenge because I'm a history teacher.
Okay.
So while I'm grabbing an arm and getting ready to throw a clothesline, I hear, who won the War of 1812? And my little flame just went off, and I went, nobody won the War of 1812. It was status pro quo, and we just agreed to stop fighting. And then I found myself, okay, why are they throwing questions? History now it's a challenge to them, right? Because they want to see if they can stump me,
Yeah.
and that's not what I need to be thinking about while
No.
I'm, So the guy sent me an email and told me how much he enjoyed doing that, and I said I actually enjoyed it. I said, but I can't do it again. I said my partner said that might be a lack of concentration, or it could be really good concentration, but it's fan interaction. I tell young guys, you got to make two people happy. You got to make the promoter happy. That's number one. Did he like what you do? Because you want him to bring you back. And number two, you've got to entertain fans. You've got to tell a good story.
Yeah. So dream matches. So if you could have a dream match with any location, with anybody out there, who would it be and where would it be at?
Okay, you realize that all my heroes are gone, right?
Yes.
Okay. But my dream match would be Dusty Rhodes at the Omni in Atlanta.
Okay.
That's again, I grew up a Dusty fan, and everything that not everything, but a lot of what I do is Dusty. I mean, a lot of what I say, I don't say it like he did, but my motivation, the thing that I look at to try to is Dusty Rhodes promos, because there's two or three guys from that era, Ric Flair, those, and I'll throw out Austin Idol because he was a great promo too, and he's a friend of mine. But those guys were magic, and there was just something special when you said, Saturday night, the Omni in Atlanta, the main event, and just give me a match with Dusty, and I'll listen and I'll learn, and that would be my dream match.
So you're talking about Dusty. So do you think Cody can finish the story?
Can he? That's, ultimately, not to break kayfabe, but, that's not up to him. So can he? Absolutely. He's talented. And again, another guy that I think now people have fallen in love with him as a face again, but that's another guy who went out of his way to make me look good and set up something for matches that he didn't have to do, So, I mean, I've, again, nothing but respect for that guy. He's amazing.
Absolutely. So, I take care of foster kids, and of course, they have their questions. So I call this kids' questions. It's just real quick answers. So, favorite food?
Because I'm constantly dieting, it's steak.
Okay. So, does pineapple belong on pizza?
No.
Okay.
Tastes good, but it doesn't belong there.
Favorite book?
My first real book that I read and fell in love with was The Hobbit.
Okay.
Tolkien's The Hobbit, and then follow those up with the Lord of the Rings stuff. So,
favorite TV show?
I almost said I don't watch much TV, but that should be a lie. So I can't tell that. Old school, I liked Friends, and I liked Cheers, and man, I am really old. I haven't named one thing in the 2000s, I don't think so.
Stop, because you're naming shows I watch. So you're
okay.
You're not old, dude. You're not.
Okay.
All right. We're like, I'm 5 years away from you. So
okay. All right.
We're not old. We're
seasoned.
Seasoned. There you go. I like that better. So, favorite potato chip?
Give me Cheetos.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Can't go wrong with Bull Durham.
Okay. You have a favorite sports team?
I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan from early on. Hey, if anybody, you ought to be patting me on the back and saying, I'm sorry and I feel for you. It's not, what has it been, 27 years now? So
I'm a Lions fan. So
okay.
So
okay. I'm a Dan Campbell fan. Does that count?
There you go. All right. We're back together again. So what's your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Oh, man. Here's the problem. Okay, let me just do it. I'll do Dusty, Undertaker, give me Flair, and let's go just for more modern. Let's go Kurt Angle. Okay. But the The problem is, to me, you have to break those up into categories.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So we have Damian Wayne was on here. I don't know if he's still here, but would you ever consider a match with Damian Wayne?
Absolutely. No, we worked, I think, in Kentucky, and boy, I hope I know I'm remembering right. Francisco Ciazza was at ringside. Special guest referee Tracy Smothers, and we I had the world title, and we probably went 20 minutes, in front of a good crowd. Obviously not thousands, but it was in front of a good crowd, and man, I would do it again any day. He's a real deal.
Yeah, he is. So we're gonna talk CWF.
Okay.
When did you move to Texas and get involved with CWF? Was that around 2000?
Yeah, it was. I took a job here as the vice president of a company. 9 months in, they fired the entire upper management staff, and at the time, no reasoning, no nothing, just everybody was gone.
Okay.
For that 9 months, I told you that I was going to be a grown up, work, do the 80 hours a week, make the six figures, and 9 months in, I remember walking in and shutting the door, and I told my wife, okay, well, she knew our house sold last month in Arkansas, and now I don't have a job. So I had contacted Rob through a church, somebody I'd met in church, who said, "You used to wrestle?" And I said, "Yeah, I used to." And I called Rob, and he goes, "I'm on my way to this youth ministers convention where we're going to have our first ever exhibition." He said, "But I'd love to have you talk to you." And I did the first event. In I want to say it was in Rockwall, I think. It was out there. And for a long time, that's the only place I wrestled. We had a guy there that had trained with Les Thatcher. You can't get better than that. And he had come back and was super talented, a little bit undersized, but he had trained with Benoit and Malenko, and they said, "Hey, you've been wrestling for 5 or 6 years. Would you help train?" And I went, "Well, sure." And really, I was the one getting trained. I had to learn to bump because I never really bumped well. Anyway, so I got involved right off the bat, and I don't know how many shows I was involved in, but for 8 or 10 years, that's where my number one priority was. And we went to Africa. We went to a lot of places, and life-changing experiences.
Wow. So what about the evolution of CWF from the day you got there till now? It came a long ways.
It has, but we were very fortunate right off the bat. I can picture it in my head. But I would say the first crowd, there had to have been 600 or 700 there at the church. And I learned my role pretty quickly, as at the time I was one of the bigger guys, and I was going to be the main heel that was going to be hated. And probably before the end of the night, the youth minister or the pastor was probably going to hit me with some finishing move to get the pop. And that was all great with me. CWF, Rob, those guys run a regular show in Rockwall. They have their own facility. That looks great. I think now, at the time, it was basically we only used our guys, and on every show for the first 2 or 3 years, I think most of us worked twice every show, because we just didn't have a lot of guys. Rob's now reached out to a lot of guys from all over, not just Texas, but Lodi, Kane, and guys that he's brought in to use, and brings guys from all over. And I think that adds a lot to it. But, I always told people all the time, it's a strange deal. I don't know how God can use professional wrestling as a ministry, but still does. And it's still, it's still a great outreach tool.
Absolutely. So I reached out to all these guys, you know, see if, so you can find a lot of your NWA history on whatever on this internet, but CWF I couldn't find much. But a lot of these questions would come from your friends at CWF.
Okay. Oh no.
So here's one. Here's one. Is it Transmorphers or Transformers?
Depends on which one of the guys you're asking. It's Transformers, but I understand the argument and I know I'm right.
Okay. Ask him about the glorious DVD day and the technology in Nigeria has to put 20 movies on one disc.
Which I've still got on that shelf right back there, and they never worked, by the way. So we were in Africa for, I don't know, over a week, 10 days maybe, and we ran shows all over the place, outreach. We had at one point, okay, going out there, here's what we were told. And I maybe Rob had a better grasp than I did, but we're going to be working these huge shows in soccer stadiums all over Nigeria, basically. But when I picture that, I picture this beautiful green field with, you know, thousands of seats. And in reality, it's a big dirt field because that's where they play soccer. The strange thing is they only got two things on TV. They got soccer and they got WWE. So they were familiar with wrestling. They had just never seen live wrestling. So there were times when there was legitimately thousands of people with standing as far as you could see, people sitting on the walls. And at some point you get desperate for, somebody found these DVDs where, you know, I don't know what it was, MP3s at the time, MP4s, where there were lots of movies on there. And we somehow made up the glorious DVD day where the DVD bird would bring our gifts. And it was ridiculous. But you know, when you're with that group of guys doing something you believe in and getting to do something you love to do, you entertain yourselves. And it was we still joke about it. And I think I really do have those DVDs over there. And they never worked.
Nice. So here's an interesting one. Ask them about the origin of the Mama Storm angle gimmick.
I think the original one, you know, I cut a promo. I can't remember if it might have been the first match against Nick. Okay. Ode to Dusty. I threw out a line in a promo that was literally just I'm going to drop this for Dusty, you know, and I said, I was fired up and I was cutting a Dusty promo, but it was me. And I said, I will be Mama Storm's baby boy until the day I die, which is true. Now I'm getting teary because I still am. But I really threw it out there and didn't think it was going anywhere. And I had to stop because the crowd started chanting Mama Storm in the middle of the promo. And I stopped and let it breathe. I got in the ring, and they were still chanting Mama Storm. And I looked at the ref and went, I don't know if this is good or bad, because I'm about to have a big match and they're cheering for my mom, not me. But it literally got a life of its own. I think it trended #1 on Twitter that night, which is for a show, you know, for a show that's a small, you know, I mean, but it was to my mom's, literally her dying day. I would say, Mom, everybody loves you. And she goes, oh, people don't even know me. And I said, you have no idea. So that's the origin.
Okay. This is a compliment. This guy, he had a bad trainer who told him to watch his back around you. And come to find out, you were one of his truly best trainers and helped him through to grow in CWF. I don't know. I didn't write it down, but this person said you remember that situation. And why I say that is you are several other things I'm going to talk about. You're highly loved over at CWF and appreciated of what you've done and where you brought the business.
And I I think whoever said, I'm thankful for that. But it's that brotherhood. We love each other, but it's funny because, and I still don't know the right answer, but APOC and I still just shake our heads at why do people think we're stiff? Why do people think we work, really heavy? Because neither one of us actually think we do. And then I watched a match that he and I had against two guys at another company, and it was, oh, that's why, because we are laying it in pretty stiff. And so I can see, watch your back, but also, sadly, my brain just went, oh, I know who they're talking about. So not the guy that said it, but the guy that said it. So
can you talk about German Fest Wrestling Tournament in Munster, Texas?
Ooh, man, the most unique combination of thoughts. Johnny Mantell came up with this concept. He wanted the top, I think his original want was 500 independent wrestlers in the United States. He didn't get that. I think he got, I don't remember the number. I'm going to throw one out there and say 96. Don't know if that's right. Every match you went out there and you were rated by, in my mind, legitimate guys like Stan Hansen, Buck Robley, Iceman King Parsons. I mean, they would have three guys, judges, and they would judge you in your look, how you worked, and so there were three categories. And then they would pull that into one score, and they did over a course of 3 days, a single elimination. They came down to a single elimination bracket. First day, everybody wrestled twice. Then it went into the bracket. Everybody was seated, and then it became a single elimination tournament from there. Didn't matter who won or lost. You were given a ribbon that you tied around your ankle. One of us had red, one of us had green in every match, and that's how they would hold up the scores.
Mm.
I didn't want to participate because I grew up where you don't pay to wrestle. You get paid to wrestle. There was an entry fee, so I wouldn't do it. And a week out, Johnny called me and said, hey, listen, I really want you to do this. And I said, I can't do it. I'm wrestling for Tim Brooks. And he goes, Tim's show is not next week. It's the following week. And he said, I've got a guy who had somebody had sponsored him who's hurt, can't be here. I'm going to give you that sponsorship. So I did it. And once I got into the single elimination, I just kept thinking, never thought I would get here. One more match. Temperature dropped from 75 and beautiful to 28 and rainy, and they had to move us under a pavilion, and it was horrible. And just kept advancing. And I don't know, where's it at? There's a beautiful belt over there somewhere that at the time was, the concept was, this is the Independent World Championship. And Harley Race handed it to me, and he said, this is the equivalent of the NWA World Title. You have two choices. You win, or if you put them over, you win it back within a week. You are representing all of us, and I expect you to go out there and represent me the way you're supposed to. And I just went, yes, sir, Mr. Race. And it became a whole different concept to me of what it was like. So really, I think that's what kicked off the run that I've now been riding for 15 years. It started with that.
So you and Rob had a chance to go to Nigeria with CWF.
Mm-hmm.
You and Rob roughly weighed about 300 pounds each. And
I know where the story's going, yes.
they had a funny saying about you guys. The Nigerians said when you two wrestle, it was like two elephants colliding.
Our interpreter said something, and the crowd all laughed. On the introduction, we were wrestling each other. And afterwards, I think one of us said, what did you say that they laughed at? And he goes, I told them where two elephants collide, no grass grows, or something like that. And we just went, so what are you saying? Yeah, that was a 300-pound Tim Storm. So not a pretty sight. Not a pretty sight at all.
So Rob has also said that you have a head of cement, like concrete. He said he hit you a couple times. And he said, holy cow, and They just love you there, man. You remember when Rob gave you clothes from the House of Pain, Iron Horse?
Absolutely. I probably still have some of those in my drawers in there. They were all basically was it Fubas? Is that what the or Zumbas? I don't know, whatever it was. That's what it looked like, and I probably still got them somewhere. I tried to do CWF full time for about a year, to the point where we cashed in all of our our retirement stuff, and we were really trying to make it work. And there were times when Rob clothed me with House of Pain gear to keep me from not stinking all the time or whatever. So it was good times, man.
So you've always been a Christian. Is there a testimony that you can share?
Well, I mean, not always. At some point you have to come to a point where you go, okay, I can't do this on my own. I was very fortunate that I was probably I grew up in a good church. Nobody else in my family went. My mom wanted me to go, but the bus came and picked me up every Sunday morning and took me. And I made that decision when I was 11, I think. And I think just like anybody else in life, I'm always really careful when I talk about my faith and when I talk about what I do. It's not a road where you're all uphill and you're not always up here. It's like this all the time. And you fight, you try to follow and make good decisions. And when you fail, the good news is you can be forgiven. All you gotta do is ask. So it's an amazing thing. And to me, one of the most amazing things that is that God can use professional wrestling to do good things. And he can use not bad people. He can use people that are far from perfect and still use them to do what he wants you to do. And that in itself is a miracle.
Absolutely, 100%. So, to close the show, I want to talk about some certain people that on February 25th, yourself and APOC, and if my backstage guys could play that song.
Bible Club. Eternal life.
He is the way and he's Jesus Christ. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. He is the
So when you hear that song, when you're in the ring there and you hear that song, you're waiting for those guys. You got Luke 9, you got Fitz, you got Lawless. What can you say to them to get them mentally prepared for what they should expect from you and APOC?
Man. Okay, first off, you could play that music a dozen times and I couldn't tell you whose it was. So I'm not going to feel anything when I hear their music.
Yeah.
No, I'm being truthful. Play what we've come out to forever, which was we came out to music called Hypocrite.
Okay.
Fitz is what, 6'8", 380 pounds. I've watched Johnny grow and improve, but again, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to stand in the ring and wait for them because we're the champions. They'll stand in the ring and wait for us. It'll be a good match. I told you before, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Fitz sent me a message today saying I'm looking forward to the match. I'll try not to knock you out this time. And my response legitimately was, pretty sure you weren't trying to the first time. So he can do it without trying. He's just a big, strong man. They're not take anything away from those guys. It's going to be a match. And we'll see if youth can prevail because APOC and I have been tagging together CWF alone since the year 2000. So I don't go into any match that I don't expect to win. So I fully expect to come out of this with the title still.
There you go. So everybody, Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast Land, 25th of February at the Sportatorium in Rockwall, Texas. CWF Christian Wrestling Federation has an event which will put Tim Storm and APOC versus the Bible Club. You don't want to miss it. Hopefully, I can grab that the next day or through the YouTube channel so we can watch Tim Storm and APOC defend their titles against the Bible Club. I'm a Bible Club guy. I wish you luck, Mr. Storm. I not a doubt in my mind that you and APOC can't. There's not a doubt in my mind you can take care of those guys because you may be 60, but you're in pretty good shape. That's all I got to say.
Here's how I'll end it. And this I say this every match that I have in the world. Terry Funk says every match is a great match until it starts. So ring the bell. Let's see what happens. And God has blessed me with a body that can still go.
Yes, sir. So I'm gonna close the show. But please, Mr. Storm, can you just stay in? Don't go anywhere. Don't log off. Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. It's been another awesome Monday evening with Wrestling with the Purpose with CWF Rockwell. Our guest tonight was Tim Storm. I thank you for everything, Mr. Storm, for coming on, sharing your stories, sharing your ideas of NWA, CWF, everything. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate my guy in the back, Cody. If he could play the song to exit out of here, my Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. We love you guys, and we're out.
All my dogs, make some noise up in this house. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out.
Fight with Adrian Whisper is like a fight with the devil, because when he's dealing with you, you cannot get on this level.
Fight with Adrian Whisper is like a fight with a king. It's like a fight with an army. They got the tanks and everything.
He's leaving bruises and stitches, possibly leaving you crippled, cause when he sets up the table and sends you straight through the middle.
Six sadistic free, beat that ass with a light bulb. Leave a piece of glass embedded in the back of your skull. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the ground. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your ass is knocked out. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the ground. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your ass is knocked out.